Who would like to share in our audience first your overall takeaways, or maybe like a couple of things that you wanted to implement from the book? What'd you think?
I can say when I was reading it, it was really relevant to everything I'm going through now with, Amanda and my team. And I did find a lot of takeaways. I'm going to try to find them in my highlighted digital version as we go on. Definitely about using your time wisely when you're at the office and trying not to let too many things get in the way. Managing your time and your energy.
Yeah. Who else had a thought around that? Anyone else have a similar takeaway or some thoughts around that? The time and the energy?
I really liked the way that she structures her day. So, or rather, Adam is structuring his day, because I know Allie does most of it, but then Adam executes upon it. So it was interesting to me to have like big time blocks of when you have your meetings rather than just scheduling the meetings throughout the day. And then just even their personal lives was very insightful in terms of like getting up in the morning and having your routines in place and just starting off the day on the right foot. I thought that was a really good thing. I have myself probably some routines, but not to that extent. Like Adam's journaling and everything he gets in at like 4 a.m. in the morning. So
yeah, I don't know about anyone else. I was just as surprised when I read that, and I consider myself a morning person with a solid routine. And I looked at that and I'm like, wow, that's a whole nother level.
I really, I enjoyed that they looked at it as you're a unit together, and that one without the other, it doesn't work, and you have to be a well-oiled machine together. I really thought that it wasn't like one is above the other, that he doesn't operate without her and she doesn't operate without him, and then that it trickles down to the rest of the team members. So I thought that was really a great way and a good perspective to look at it.
Yeah, that is so absolutely key. I agree. In fact, he wrote right in the beginning, the ideal strategic partnership is a business relationship where each party is dedicating their time and resources to the partnership rooted in their strengths. It's like they complement each other.
Can I just ask, because I wasn't here last time, are you reading a certain part, chapter, the whole thing?
The whole thing.
So just wherever you are in it. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
But you don't have to have read the whole thing to come. It's just like we'll recap it and do some takeaways. So it's like you get the Cliff Notes version if you came, but you didn't read the whole thing. So you could come either way.
Yeah.
You could come if you didn't read any of it.
Yeah, I'm like halfway through. I had to pick it back up. I got it when they first put it out and read through it, and so then I just picked it up again when Megan told me about this.
I had one I loved, like as far as like a takeaway that you could implement in your business no matter where you are in your business, and that was on page 56. And it's the daily accountability questions, which is it's nothing new. Like you get that in PREA too. But the question that was new or that I thought was great was the 5th question, which was, who is your replacement? And whether you do daily accountability questions or you add that to a 411 or a cash talk, I thought that was like super. Just for you as the DO or the EA too, to be thinking, asking your people below you, like everyone on the team should be answering that question, like who is your replacement, which is just such a great growth and leadership question. Like it makes you think about who you're pouring your energy back into to grow into their next opportunity, which might be your job. And but it also helps you think, Like, where am I going to go next? Like, what's my next big step so that when I have my replacement, where am I going? So like super, super good leadership question, I thought, on page 56. And anyone could implement that tomorrow. It's another thing I love about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like the daily accountability questions just as a whole, 5 of them, but obviously ending with that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, what a way to screen who's all in on your team, right? Like who's really into your vision and what you're painting. So I agree with you, Megan. I really like that.
I also flagged their schedules just more as a warning, actually, just to say, like, you know, they scheduled themselves like 6 hours of sleep. I don't know how healthy that is. I mean, like 10 pages later, they say get 7 to 9 hours. I'm gonna call out that one. So flag on that one. But yeah, so we all want to have our best schedule, but just make sure you're getting enough sleep. So that I flagged that one because I was like, 6 hours for me right now, that's probably all I'm getting because I have little kids, but that's not like my ideal number of hours of sleep. Like if I were going to be my best self in the morning to get up and do my job as good as I could, I personally need 8. Like there's no way I'm getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep and showing up ready to, read something interesting for an hour.
No, I mean, I love the fact that you brought that up because I was on the same thought process as you. I'm thinking most people that you talk to just discuss about having a schedule that serves you. And I'm definitely more of the opinion that less is more. And I felt like this was so heavily time blocked. I don't know what everyone else thought. I wonder what percentage of that is executed every day.
Yeah, one of them gets up at 4:27 a.m.
Right.
That is really strict.
And when you read Atomic Habits, they say that you can only stick to that for so long before you break down. Like, we as human beings aren't meant to be that regimented.
I did try it. I was like a 4:30 girl for like 3 months, and it's true, Paula. You can't do it forever. It's not normal.
I would agree with you. I think for most cases, I don't think you want to speak in definitives, though. Like my past boss in Rainmaker, I mean, he legit goes to bed at 11 and still gets up at 4 and 5 naturally and rides. Like I've stayed in hotel rooms with him. He doesn't use an alarm. He just gets up and he goes. And he's done that at least 4 years. And from what I've known of his wife in the past, he's always been that way. Mm-hmm. So yes, I would agree with you. I don't think it serves most. And I think we got to be careful to talk in definitives because she might be able to do that.
Well, and there's a difference between the amount of sleep you get at night, because that might be his natural rhythm. Is his day as regimented as their days in the book? Meaning, is he up at 4 and he does this and then this and then this and then this?
In the morning, yes. I don't know about the afternoon.
Right. And I think you can be for a certain part of the day. If you get too regimented, I think you can only handle that regiment for so long. Like we need downtime. We need that relaxed time. That I don't have to do anything right now time.
Well, even Gary Keller talks about how the idea is just to control your day before noon. Right. That's why the MREA, he wrote the energy plan only runs from 6 to 11. Right. And then in the one thing we talk about time blocking, really only your big rocks in your success list. It's really not about time blocking every minute.
Right.
And I think I still liked her routine, and there was a lot of stuff you could take away as far as the way that they journal.
Yeah.
In a conversation around that.
Yeah.
It's the timing that I think could be discussed.
Yeah, and I think probably the purpose of doing that was showing you all the things to incorporate in your life, not necessarily you have to do it in every single day.
Right. Yep. Agreed.
What were just y'all's general thoughts on this? I mean, this is a little bit of a different model, for instance, than the MREA model of an EA. Like, this is not quite what is described like inside the Keller-Williams universe. So what were your thoughts about this model versus that one, and the way she structures or the way she thinks about EA work?
So I'll just start with that. When I got this book and read it, we got it together with my megas, and I don't come from Keller-Williams, right? I've only been here just a little bit over 5 years. So this book is my life. This is exactly how I am with my past, you know, whether I'm executive assistant to the president or, you know, which has always been my role somehow. But this is it. And so I felt like immediately, like, oh my God, somebody gets it. Like, yes. And I wanted them to get it. And they quit reading it. They did not love it. So that was a little bit of a challenge for me.
Did they say what the disconnect was?
Well, I don't think that he ever verbalized. They didn't care for this one. Not Jennifer so much. Brian didn't care for this one, and he didn't care for rocket fuel. He just said, I just don't get it. And so I don't know.
What's the key to this really though? Like real early on, they start saying a couple things like, to your point, Sally, like no one knows your team but me. So maybe it's only obvious to me, but what is like the key ingredient that's maybe missing, even just based off the conversation we just had, like missing with, you know, Brian, that would make this maybe not his preferred model?
Yeah, I don't. Well, for me, it's the strategic partnership. Like, that's what I crave. Like, that's what I'm good at. I mean, I know I don't ever want to be that person in the front. That's just not me. I will stand right back here and make all this happen. And that's what I crave, is that hand in glove. So for us, this talks about that a little bit. Like, Adam's the visionary, right? Like, he has all these big things. And those are the people I've worked with before. And you have to rope them in a little bit, like not too much, right? Because that's what you want, but you have to put feet to it sometimes. And so like, that's kind of what when I first started this, and like I said, I haven't finished it, but that's kind of what I saw in this, and the same thing in rocket fuel, that those kind of ideas like spoke to me. Like, I love that. I can't even tell you how much.
So when you look at Brian, is he a visionary? Is he that big thinker? Which is what this goes to, and rocket fuel. I mean, the Rainmaker in both of those is this big visionary dream person. Is he one of those? And so that may be the disconnect in there.
Adam owns like 800 companies, and he's constantly teaching. Like, he's doing something from 3 in the morning until like 10 o'clock at night. Brian's not, right? Like, why? This person would make you crazy. Like, having a Hallie in your life, if you just kind of want to go on a barefoot walk through the forest for 3 hours, is going to make you nuts. Like, that's just not a good model for you, right? So this is a really specific model. I think just acknowledging that is important. Like, this isn't everyone's best practice. You know, this is a specific model.
Right.
Sally's like, I'll schedule that 3 hour barefoot walk through the forest. I'll do it.
Well,
and even Adam talks about that a little. He's like, I felt suffocated. Like, talk about boundaries, and I feel like suffocated. And yet he's so highly, like, he's energized by all of this creation. And that's maybe not every single Rainmaker. Some Rainmakers' vision of a 7th level exit really looks like 2 agents on the team, and they work part-time listings. You know, like, that's their dream one day. and this is not going to work for them. Laura, welcome to the screen.
Sorry, I'm working from home and I have 2 kids running around, so you're gonna see them at some point, I'm sure.
We get it.
Good. No, I mean, I would agree. I think some of the application is up for discussion on how it could work. And I think there's some overall themes, right? Like, I love the page 64, the 7 principles from Fierce Conversations. And I'm a big believer on a lot of these books that we read. You got to tie them in together, right? Like, how do they work? And I think a lot of us do have an opportunity to take the reins more than what Haley. It has to be in a fit in a team. But a lot of the language in the conversation that I hear is around, like, I'm just an ops, or I just do. There's always that, like, just do, like there's a qualification there. And one thing I did love about Haley is I very much felt like, I wonder how much of it was Adam empowering her and how much of it was she was telling Adam, like, I want this empowerment, I'm going to take it.
And I'm sure it was a combination of the two.
Right.
Which brings up a really good point, Zach, and I don't know if you and Megan have experienced this too. I can't tell you how many times as I've onboarding a client, part of what the Rainmaker says to me in their initial conversation of why they want their operations person in coaching is because they want them to take more control. They want them to stand up. They want them to be more assertive. It's a very common theme that I've experienced. Have you?
Yeah. Yeah, and page 29 talks about it in the book. Here we are again. We're at a crossroads where I love the 5 outlines on how to create a strategic partnership. I fundamentally don't like the order, and I know that sounds bad, but they have number 1, give up control. Number 2, meet and communicate regularly. 3, set clear expectations, goal. 4, build trust. 5, invite to inner circle. I feel as though give up control is what we hear a lot, and what we hear, right? And a lot of us are like, our Rainmaker won't give up control, or they always are back in it. But I think that's because we try to do that first. And really, if you think about that order, it's first about building trust, setting some clear expectations. Then we're going to meet and communicate about what we're doing around there. And then it's going to be a slowly giving up that control, right? Which can be a fight. But
and
I think if we start
the person taking control, yeah.
Yeah.
It comes last. I agree with you, Zach.
Yeah, and like we've talked all about financials lately, right? Or at least a lot of us have, and had that conversation because it's an important foundation to us to kind of level up as operations. And I think we do that. We skip step 2 through 5, and the very first thing we do is go, just give up control, right? Like, just give it to me. And I think without doing those other steps in a specific order, it can kind of create that. We don't have that trust yet.
It's a great point. Love it.
Really great point.
I know that was a soapbox, but I would love to hear other people's opinions on page 29. That was mine.
I tend to agree because I feel like so many of the hard decisions that you're going to make as a partnership require that you know where each individual is coming from. You can't just go into right off the bat and have those tough conversations. You have to build the rapport. You have to know what each other's interests are and the outcome. So it makes complete sense to me, and it's what I've experienced. I mean, you can't just come in and say, like, let me see your QuickBooks. That's, for a lot of people, that's really personal. So
yeah. And to be fair, I love that feedback, but to be fair to the book, they don't specifically say that's the order. So it's possible they didn't mean it that way. That's just the way my mind works, right? You're going to label something 1 through 5.
Put them in
I'm
order.
taking it straight. Yeah, I'm going down the list.
I think in terms of building trust too, it goes back to like stay in your lane, like trying to figure out what each other's responsibilities are is something that takes time. I don't know if you've all have experienced that, but you kind of have to feel your way through and say, okay, well, I don't want to step on your toes too much, but I really think we should do it this way. And you kind of navigate through that pretty regularly.
Yeah.
They talk a lot too about transparency and expectation setting and all of that, which I think too is so important. I think it's easier on the operation side maybe than on the admin side. So on the operation side, you know, our struggle can sometimes be, you know, how do you get that within a high, fast-paced moving individual who doesn't really understand the point of having like a daily meeting with you or even a weekly meeting, right? Like, how do you have that? How do I move you forward, protect your time? But also if I don't know what you're doing or I don't know what's going on, you know, they talk a lot about her constantly being like, even just studying emails he's sent and that kind of thing to make sure she's up to speed, because that can be so challenging. What were y'all's thoughts on that? How to create that transparency in the working cycle or dynamic of those two opposite personalities?
I've actually experienced both extremes. So in my previous team, I had access to every single calendar, everyone's email. I could see everything. And then on my current team, I only have my account, really. And so it was one of those things when I came in, I was like, oh, really? Like, now I have to ask you what you're doing? Like, it was just this foreign concept to me. So it's taken some getting used to. I definitely see the benefit of having that transparency, and it's pretty important in what we do, specifically on operations. It's like, okay, I need to know when my window is to ask you these questions, you know?
Yeah, I feel in theory this is exactly the way it should work, and yet I see it very rarely work the way they're saying it should work. Like in theory, it's great.
Well, and I always, when you read Rocket Fuel and they're talking about the visionary and the implementer, on some of the extremes they talk in, I feel like this is the relationship they're describing.
Yeah.
When I think it tends to be more blended, right? Like we're not always true implementers. We have a vision, and we're not always a true visionary. It's more blended in the middle, which is why I think when you go to this extreme, it works for this relationship, and in a lot of cases, it can be a challenge.
Yeah, so if you think of the book like a case study, it's like what Zach just said, like this is just one example of how it could work. So if we looked at it just like clinically, like that, and they don't pretend they're anything else, by the way. Like this isn't a research document. It's like this is just their one case study of how this works for them. So if you look at it that way, you know, what would you choose to take from this case study back to your business, and what do you choose to leave behind? What's going to serve you?
And truly, that's how I look at every book, Megan. What can I take away from that book to implement? I might throw away 70% of it, but there's 30% that, you know, I can implement somewhere.
Yeah. So, something serves you, something doesn't serve you. You're just going to let it go.
Yeah.
And take what does.
Right.
So I wasn't asking rhetorically though, y'all. What you going to take?
I still am begging for Zoom to do the Jeopardy theme or like cricket soundbar.
Zach's going to come to some call where he just hits something and it starts playing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's our, go ahead.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Well, I was just going to say, to answer your question, Megan, I don't know if it's specifically articulated here. I listen to their podcasts and do their trainings too. So I think it's just in general, like they work very hard, but then they also do schedule in quite a bit of downtime where they recharge and do different things. So having that balance, I think initially when you read this, it's kind of intimidating and scary. And it's like, I don't know how I could survive like that. But then when you realize that kind of, like the illustration about when you have balance, it's like it counterbalances, you know? So to me, it makes me feel better. And it's like, okay, well, we'll schedule the vacation time in there, or if I need to, like they have unlimited vacation. And as long as your job gets done, the job gets done. So.
Yeah. That's a great point. Page 117, they talk about that. Be more selfish with your time, your relationships, with your goals, dreams, and desires. Being selfish actually allows you a more room to grow and more room to give. And even in their coaching, Adam has a coaching company. I have a couple of clients that are in it, and they very much coach that. And it's not, and that's not a right or wrong or judgment statement, but they very much coach to more of the mental side and health side of things. So I think that's a great point you bring up, Audrey.
Well, and it goes back to what Hallie experienced too. Like she burned out and she was like, I'm done, and walked away. And then she came back and they kind of rebuilt it the way that it would work for her. So I think that's probably where a lot of the be selfish comes in. Like you got to make it work for whatever personalities you have going on.
Yeah. That, man, it's like you're reading my mind today, Audrey. We're on the same page. So let me right into this. Look at you being Haley, Holly. All right. So look, page 174. Watch for burnout. Burnout doesn't happen from the number of hours worked or even from intensity of the work. Burnout happens for several main reasons. When you are not growing, when you're out of alignment with your natural behavior, and when you are not having success for an extended period of time. That was actually the whole book. I didn't take too much away to implement except for that. That was the one thing I've used in my coaching, and it's one thing that I've really thought about in my life because it's so true. It's people attribute it to long hours. Right? Like most times the conversation will be like, oh, I'm working long hours and I'm burned out. And when you dive in, it very rarely has to do with the hours we're putting in. It has everything to do with what we're doing and what energizes us, or willpower, as I describe it.
Great point.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
In terms of responsibilities, I think it was key when they brought their executive assistant, Amy, on. It kind of freed Hallie up to do the things she actually felt rewarded by.
Which as we move up in our teams, how often have we seen that? Because part to me of moving up is you get to choose what you want to do and what you're going to leverage. And so we start to get that choice on, you know, what pieces we want to keep. I liked on page 50, the own your part, because I'm a huge believer in this. And that you own your role and you own everything that goes along with your role. So am I achieving the goals and expectations of my position of the company? Do I even know what the goals and expectations are? And if you don't know what they are, how are you going to achieve them? Do I need to work on my leadership skills? To me, I don't care what position you are in the company, you're a leader. Even if you're starting out with somebody and you're an executive assistant, you're a leader. There are people you're leading. They may be clients, they may be vendors. You're leading somebody. Do I need to work on my communication skills? Key, because communication is everything. What skill might I lack that is causing my executive not to have full faith in my abilities? So how do I need to develop myself to really be great in the position I am in and to grow? And have I proactively reached out to my executive to have a conversation with him about me assuming more responsibility and autonomy? And that, to me, is what every rainmaker is looking for. They want you to take that responsibility. They want you to be more of an independent working person, an independent thinker. They don't want you to go rogue. They want you to think more for yourself. They don't want to do the thinking for you.
Which, by the way, is so true. We do that to ourselves a lot. I think it's interesting because a lot of us ask to own the role and want to make that higher so we can lead, right? And we get promoted, or essentially we get to move up in the company, which is something we desire. And yet the next hire we make, we usually don't look at it as a strategic partnership to make us better. We look at it as an employee or just a TC. And owning the role, we say it a lot, and yet we don't treat it like a strategic partnership, and they never fully own it, right? Like, we make all the implementation suggestions. We have to ask them for updates. We have to go and ask for the 411 because we've hired an employee and not a strategic partner like they're discussing in this book, Amy, who made them so much better.
That's a really, really good thought, Zach.
Mm-hmm.
We have 12 more minutes. What other takeaways? Probably a little less because we need to throw out our October agenda. We have 10 more minutes. What other takeaways or things would you like to discuss from our book this month?
Kathy, is there anything that you wanted to share on the book since you just popped in?
I'm so glad you asked. I did not read that book. I wanted to read that book, but geez, mega camp and trainings and work. And
Of your honesty.
I'm in the middle of GRI 3.0 something. So you guys tell me, do I need to ask any questions about it? What was your favorite part?
That is a great question. Other than the coaches that are on this call, Kathy, I give you permission to pick someone and ask them what their favorite part of the book was.
Oh, well, anyone who's looking down is like, don't pick me, don't pick me.
Looks like everybody's head goes down.
Well, Beth, I don't know you, so I'm going to go with you.
Well, that was sweet. I was just kind of looking through to see what I highlighted because I don't really remember exactly my favorite part, but this part I did highlight. It's about leading yourself to lead the team, taking ownership, I guess, of your position and master the ability to lead yourself to lead others. And I think that is really important. And what that means, growing accountability and getting outside of your comfort zone. I think that's really good.
Thank you.
So good. Yeah.
You can pay me back one day.
You're next. Next time.
One more thing that I thought was interesting was what to name the different positions, because I hadn't really thought about it, but they had given somebody a title that was probably higher than they deserved at the beginning or than was needed, and eventually had to kind of downgrade them because they were trying to add somebody else in that had a higher skill set. And that was really kind of impactful for me, realizing, okay, well, let's not name everybody a director right off the bat.
Yeah.
I felt the same, or just giving the appropriate title to begin with and having people live up to that title or know what they're there to do, and other people know what to expect from them.
Right.
That's important.
It's like if someone could just come up with a model that would walk us through what that organizational chart would look like, it would be fantastic.
Sick.
Sounded like he was volunteering.
I think he's referencing the MREA.
Oh.
It already exists. Yeah.
Okay.
So something else that kind of stuck out to me is the question that they had on page 102 is, sorry, am I being active or am I being productive? And the difference in which that is, and how to schedule your day around those tasks, and the difference between those two things.
That's a great one.
Bold law, Paula. What's the bold law referencing that? What Laura is discussing.
Oh, Zach, you're gonna put me on the spot.
Don't mistake movement for achievement.
In that same section, they also talk about how, like, this job is literally endless. And so in bringing team members on to the team I was on in the past, you know, sometimes that was the first time they'd experienced that. And so it was like, it's really a skill to learn how to say, you're not going to finish. Like, you're not going to like finish your work before you end for the day. Like, that's just not the kind of field this is. So that's different for some people, and just making sure everyone understands that in their role. Otherwise you do get that high stress because they couldn't finish. Like, that's not a thing. It's not a thing.
That's great advice. I wish I would have known many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
I just have one more thing. Just one more thing.
Yeah. Like, you're never going to
5 more minutes. 5 more
It's
minutes.
not the industry.
That's why prioritization is such a big deal. And I think that's why so many operations people struggle with it in this industry, is because it isn't, you never walk away getting everything done for the day. It just never happens.
No, if you did, you probably didn't set the goal high enough.
Or your agent sold like one house for the month. I don't know. Like, it's just not a thing. It's not a thing in our industry. Should we talk about our October? I mean, this wraps up September. So if you can believe it, we're headed into the last 3 months of the year. Paula?
Yeah. Looking for topics.
Looking for topics, but I'm also just realizing we never actually finalized our October book.
We didn't.
Maybe we
and I agree with you. I think we should pick either story brand or what is it? A million followers? Yeah.
Well, I think people already started. The problem is, how many of us already ordered the book we had suggested, which was, what was the book we got like 8 months ago? Yeah.
Well, it's not that we aren't going to do it.
Agreed.
Gary,
okay.
So let's just set the foundation here. Gary Keller is recommending heavily right now 2 books. One is 1 Million Followers, and the other is Story Brand. And so we're, as a company, we're going to have the Story Brand conversation when we do the fall mastermind, the fall business planning mastermind in November. And so, you know, we were just thinking maybe we would like to substitute that book as our October book, since we're having that company discussion. But the other book Gary Keller is like pushing out to all the head coaches right now is 1 Million Followers. So we're like, okay, you know, when a billionaire tells you what to read, like, our ears perk up. So we're like, 1 Million Followers and Story Brand, maybe we should pick from those 2 for this month while we're having that kind of company conversation.
And with full transparency, 3 to 4 books a month. is really pushing it for this guy right here. Who never read a book all through high school, and now I have a whole library I read.
And they all stick in your memory, which always blows my mind.
Oh, I got nothing.
I have no opinion, so whatever you guys want to do.
Right, we'll have to get them both anyway.
Well, StoryBrand, they're gonna, like, Keller Williams is sending to everybody that went to Masterminds. So if you went to Masterminds, you'll have a copy of that. If not, you don't. But yeah, if you went, just be looking for your free copy.
Do we want to start with 1 million followers because we don't know when everyone's going to get StoryBrand?
Let's do that. I vote that if nobody cares.
Okay, so let's do that then. Let's do 1 million followers.
And the StoryBrand conversation's happening like the week before Thanksgiving, so we have a little bit of a long time to read that.
And then we'll do the Road Less Stupid November. Right now. Okay.
Bump it.
I miss you guys. Just so I'd say it.
I miss you too, Kathy. It's been
I'll
a
be
crazy
back
month. Okay, so next week,
How
follow
to,
Zach,
get
you have the list.
how to get to your 411 from your GPS, which Beth can come and tell everybody. We actually had this conversation this morning.
Yes, we did. I'm new to all of this, but it's making a lot of sense. And yeah, I'll be ready.
Well, welcome.
And the 135.
Yeah.
We can add that.
So first week in September, how to create your 411 from your 135. Or sorry, October. First week in October. How to create your 411 from your 135. Second week.
Oh.
Do you have that, Paula? I know you sent me a screenshot.
Hold on, it just shut down on me. How to 411. Third week is, we're going to have a special guest.
That's right.
Fourth week is your personal financial journey. And then the fifth week is our book.
So how to get to 411 from the 135, how to 411 is the second week, like how to 411 your people, how to manage a 411 appointment or meeting, then how our special guest, it's gonna be really cool, your personal financial journey. So those two kind of go together, just heads up. And then our book.
Sounds amazing.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad I didn't just hit enter on my Amazon right now, because that one book would have cost me almost $200 because I still had things in my cart that, that you leave because you want to think about them, right?
Yes.
I almost just hit go and I was like, wait, why is that?
Cute.
Yes, I think it's set up that way on purpose because I've almost done the same thing, and it's always the cost that catches my eye.
Yeah. Like, that book is not $163. It's just not.
I've had this site that no live for 3 months. They keep telling me my cart's expiring. I tend to think I don't think it's ever leaving there. It's been like 3 months and they're still sending it.
Okay, I guess we're all good for this week then. Have a great week, everybody.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.